The Bonneville Shoreline Trail has been under construction for 30 years. Join me, Brandon Plewe, and my son Spencer as we hike the 200-mile length of the BST to learn about its past, present, and future, and explore the landscape of this boundary between the city and the wilderness.
Our next portion of the Bonneville Shoreline Trail starts in Hobble Creek Canyon, then takes us up through Springville to the edge of Provo.
Hobble Creek here gets its name from pioneer era in 1849. A couple of early pioneers were camped down here before the town of Springville was here. In the night, one of the horses escaped from its hobbles, where they'd tie their legs so that they could only walk, and bolted and went up the canyon. So it got called Hobble Creek, and the name stuck. Dominguez and Escalante named the river the San Nicolas. Personally, I would have liked Springville to be called Santa Claus, but we get what we get, so Hobble Creek it is. Today we're in the state-owned Hobble Creek Wildlife Management Area, which actually has really good potential for having the Bonneville Shoreline Trail be created and designated in the near future. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to talk to the guy that is really the champion of this segmented trail. Hey Chris, morning.
Hey Brandon, how are you?
Good.
Good.
This is Chris Morrill. Chris is the driving force for this section of the Bonneville Shoreline Trail. Chris, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I picked up mountain biking in Draper and came down here and was trying to, kind of continue my effort that way. But I got down here and I realized there wasn't a lot of local trail for me to ride on in this area. Years ago, I started walking through the woods here and just trying to figure out where the Bonneville Shoreline Trail was and where it stopped.
It's a hard thing to do.
Yeah, it's a funny thing. It all kind of stops before it even gets to this area.
Yeah.
And so I just thought, well, that's just wrong. This is too good of an area not to have a good trail system in here. And so I started walking the hills and put together some plans, but then I kind of got sidetracked and started coaching the high school mountain bike team. And so that was about 10 years ago, but now that I'm not doing that anymore, I've kind of picked up the effort here again to try to build some trail. For what we want to do in this area, you've got the city of Springville, the city of Mapleton, the DWR, the county, the Forest Service, but there's a million people that you have to talk to, and that's the most frustrating part about the whole thing.
I understand. Yeah, well, I'm proud of you because that's a point where a lot of people that are as driven and motivated as you just say, well, I'm just going to go up and start digging.
Well, right. As I've been doing this, I've seen other trails just pop up, and it is really frustrating. A couple times I've thought to myself, am I going about this all wrong? But I know I'm not.
Yeah. When has this all been built here?
Most of the work here happened in the fall of last year. And then it just started ramping up. We're kind of at a point where we can't move forward without the state of Utah or the DWR getting on board for the next phase.
One of the issues we have with these wildlife management areas is that they're intended for wildlife. So normally this would be really hard to get a trail through here.
Yeah.
You've seen some of that.
Yeah.
But what's happening now at this latest meetings with the DWR?
It seems like anytime I can get someone actually to, come out and see what we've done, they get excited about it. They actually walk this section of trail with us. And, some of those concerns came up about wildlife and, the mule deer and things like that. And, and that's one thing. I'm a mountain biker, but I get all that, and I don't want to create mountain bike only trails. I want to create a good trail system that, equestrian users can use, and trail runners and hikers and not upset the wildlife and things like that. And I know that's a hard thing to do, but I get their perspective. Too many times we don't see the other person's perspective, and so in talking with the DWR, I get what they're trying to do in this area. And it wasn't designated for recreation, but I think they're seeing a potential way it could happen.
You ever figured out what that is back there?
I don't want to know what that is back there. It looks like a World War II bunker or something.
It looks like
like you're going to see a machine gun pop out of that hole or something. but it's your guess is as good as mine as what's going on in that.
We see the oddest things along this trail. So we're getting to the top here of what you've already built. So what are we looking at here?
On top of this ridge, there's a lot of already good existing trail. I mean, it's actually the original Bonneville Shoreline Trail, or shoreline. So we'd like to get on top of there because it's above, away from homeowners. It's just better trail, it's prettier. We are standing here with the land manager, and he's looking at this section, and rather than a cut across to cross this mountain, we want to put a couple switchbacks maybe in here, maybe utilize some of this canyon and get up on top of this ridge, because after that, building the trail is easy because most of it's already there anyway.
This will be a first, I think this might be one of the first places we'll be able to get official permission to actually build new trail in a wildlife management area. So I wish you the best of luck.
Well, thank you.
But thank you so much, Chris. This has been very helpful. And we'll let you get out of the rain and get to work.
Sounds good. Thanks, Brandon.
Thanks. This might be a good place to get up on top of the bench there and kind of check out the area that Chris was talking about. Last fall, Chris and I scouted out a possible route up here that we could take, which would keep going here along the bench, eventually getting up to Spring Creek. Unfortunately, just past here, there's this deep ravine that we have to cross. And that next section of bench is all private property, although it's undevelopable, so there's a decent chance we can get approval for it. So for now, it remains a vision, but it is a really nice possible route. Looks like we've reached the edge of the wildlife management area. For years, people have assumed that the Bonneville Shoreline Trail is just this section of double track here, even though it's not officially designated and never has been. So until we are able to get that nicer trail up above us there, we'll have to continue to use this. The problem is that it just dumps us out into this subdivision. So we're gonna be walking along the street for a little bit here.
The street led to our car, so we moved on the next day.
It's spring in Springville. We continuing our hike today. Last time we were down there kind of just around the hill on that rainy day. There's no official trail here, but normally people come across that flood control dam there and wend their way up here. Today's plan is that we're going to start actually putting in some signs, thanks to our generous donors. But the downside of that is that today I've got to carry around about 50 pounds of steel with me. But here we go. Well, here is, I believe, an important point. Yep, we are now taking our first step onto official Bonneville Shoreline Trail as we cross into the Forest Service property. So from here on, we're going to be official. Now this is a bit confusing. The trail is actually that, not that. We've been very fortunate that the Forest Service has given us permission to put in a few signs on their property to make the trail more clear. So we're going to start right here. Now we make some noise. Awesome. Once you know it, I remembered everything. I forgot to bring the bolts to attach this. Oh, that is so frustrating. Well, we're going to be putting up a lot of signs today. What do you think, Spencer? Should we go back or should we just move on and not put up the signs today?
Well, our car is literally down there. And our house is 10 minutes drive, so...
Yeah, we would regret it if we didn't. Back we go. We'll come back here and finish this.
One 45-minute round trip later, and we're set for take 2.
Well, we're back in business. We have matching signs here. So we're doing a kind of an experimental design here for these signs. $6 from Lowe's. This is steel landscape edging. So that's about a couple bucks for some pretty heavy gauge steel here. And then the sticker, printed at home and then coated it with UV protectant. So we'll see how long they last. But we've had issues with some of the really nicer ones being vandalized. So we're trying to come up with a system here that can be easily replaced or repaired, and it's a little harder. These, anybody who's worked on farm fences know these stakes can be really annoying to pull out. So hopefully harder to vandalize. So these are our standard Forest Service signs. 219 is the trail number for the Bonneville Shoreline Trail. They have them all numbered. There we go. Reasonably good sign. We'll have to keep track of these and see how they keep up over time. Here's one of the standard fiberglass signs. It's probably about 20 years old. It's held up relatively well. A little more expensive though than what we're doing. They can get broken. We've seen a number of them that are broken, but the trail today goes in and out of public and private property, and yet it's officially designated all the way through, which is encouraging. So to learn a little bit more about that, we're really lucky here because I've got a guest with me. Hi, Laurie, how you doing?
Hi, Brandon.
This is Laurie Weisler. She's our department secretary and happens to live here. Actually, this is your dad's house. Your house is just beyond there, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So you see this fence. Turns out this is not their property line. Their property goes up to that stake up there on the hill, right?
Yep.
So somehow you've worked out that even though this is your property here, we have this official trail going through.
Right.
What happened? How did that happen?
Well, when we bought the property, this was already here and there's an easement. And so it's just public access. It's always been like that, and that's been worked out with the county, and I believe the Forest Service worked it out with
Probably
the
has
county.
something to do with these power lines over our heads
Makes
here, I'm
sense.
guessing. Yeah. So it was officially designated as the trail already when you bought it. So what was
Yes.
it, 25 years ago? So
About
this would have
25
been
years ago. From what we understand, we're not to develop or build past the trail here, but it is our property. It's part of the lot that we bought, and we can't build on it, but we have this. And it's pretty. Nobody else will build on it either.
Yeah. Have you ever had, is it okay with you? Have you ever had any issues or any worries about?
About people walking on
Yeah.
the trail? No, it's kind of fun. I think the worst part's our dogs bark at them. But
That's
we
your
have-
dog's job, is to bark at them.
It's true. We have horses, we have people hiking, especially this last year, it's really increased. We've had a lot more people
Oh, yeah.
on the trails. The hardest thing, the thing we worry about most is when motorbikes or four-wheelers, they get stuck trying to come up here. When they come on the trail, they're not supposed to, but we're worried about sparks, and we've had fires on the mountain before and don't
You
want
had
to do it again.
Fire last year here, right?
We did. Yeah, we had a big fire over here. We had a fire here about 8 years ago. It burned all the way down to the trail, and it was really bad.
So have you ever thought about actually kind of getting rid of the property or just donating over to the Forest Service?
We looked into that a while ago. A couple houses along here, we talked about it, but it's a little bit more complicated. We don't know if it's because there's this public access here that the county manages, or if what their agreement with the Forest Service is, but we've just decided to keep it, and it's still part of the lot.
Do you ever worry about liability, like if someone right here were to fall down and break their ankle or something?
We think that the county manages all of that for us, that because it's public access, that we're not liable for that.
What's the fancy legal word for that? You're indemnified.
Perfect. Good
All
to
right.
see you, Brandon.
Thank you.
Have
We'll see you
fun.
around. This is probably the last and maybe the only place where we can actually see everything we've hiked so far. So way off there in the distance, the last hill there is Santaquin, where we started with episode 1, and then at the base of Dry Mountain there we have Payson and the P Hill, where we did episode 2, and then Spanish Fork and the windmills in Mapleton, episode 3. And then the last part here is where we were this morning. So from here on out, it's no looking back. Pretty weird stuff here, isn't it? If you're driving past North Springville on I-15 over there, this big white splotch on the mountain is pretty unmistakable. People often wonder what it is. It looks like this is a calcium carbonate, which makes sense because that's the mineral found in limestone, which is what pretty much all these mountains are made of. You can see up there that they've been quarrying the limestone at some point. The question here, the mystery, is why this kind of heavily processed stuff, these tailings are here. And so at some point they must have been processing, although there's no evidence any buildings or anything where they would have been processing it. It's a bit of a mystery. Fortunately, we thought ahead. We already stashed a post in here. I didn't want to carry that this whole way. All right, where's our pounder? Thank you. No, rock. Trying to find a non-rocky spot on this hill is a hard deal. That was far easier than that last one. Ooh, my ears are ringing. Oh, look at that, I don't have to drill another hole. Handy. Come on.
Can't you spin it backwards?
You like that? Wait, make sure I get that right. Yeah, that's the right way. Okay, follow us up here, Spence. We're gonna test out our sign here. We see Bonneville Shoreline Trail. Look, the arrow is like right on the trail. Look at that. Going that way. Not bad for a $12 sign, huh? So that way we're entering the National Forest, but on this side, it'll get a sign that has Provo City on it. A few years ago, Springville City put in this really nice kiosk sign, which is apparently bulletproof. So obviously this is supposed to be an official trailhead. And there's plenty of room here for parking, but the shape of this it's a really bad shape. The road coming up here is a very bad dirt road. So needs a bit more work. Those piles of concrete and coal and steel you see down there is all that's left of the once massive Columbia steel mill that filled this entire area in the early 20th century. It's actually an ideal place to make steel because the railroads could bring coal from down in Price and iron from Cedar City, that's Carbon County and Iron County, no surprise, and make steel here. In fact, it was fairly prosperous for many years, but by World War II it had shut down, ironically just as Geneva Steel up the road was in its heyday. But you can see that the industrial has come back. So this is a lot like that place in Springville, but this makes a lot more sense because the buildings are still here in South Provo. So this was a lime kiln. Lime was useful for a lot of things. They use it for making cement, for agriculture as fertilizer. It's even used as part of the steel making process there at the Columbia Steel Mill. And fortunately, the mountains here are blessed. They're completely made out of limestone. So they would be able to mine it out of that quarry, bring it just right here. They had it all ready to go. And where I'm standing here would have been a big cement hole in the ground. Looks like about 40 or 50 feet tall, straight down. So they just would shovel it in here, actually fill this whole thing up with big chunks of limestone, and it would just settle there, and then they'd have a fire down at the bottom. The heat would just cook that limestone as it kind of descended down until it would come out as that pure white lime. They'd shovel it out of the bottom, which would allow more to fall, and it would just kind of be a continual process of feeding it at the top and bringing it out at the bottom as that pure lime, like what you see down there. That building probably had something to do with further processing it. At one time, there were a bunch of buildings out there. I think there was a brickworks out there, as well as several other buildings, like a cement plant and stuff. This was quite an industrial area 100 years ago. Now it's some very interesting ruins with a lot of graffiti on them. This last 8 or 9 miles of official Bonneville Shoreline Trail ends right back here because all of this old gravel pit that we're coming into is private property. Hopefully, the city right now is negotiating with the landowners here who want to develop that lower area, which looks like it's quite easily developable, but obviously this upper area is not. So they're negotiating right now to try to get the route of the Bonneville Shoreline Trail, possibly along this single track, which is pretty nice, but it's kind of narrow in places. Possibly there's another single track just below us here. So one of these routes to be the official Bonneville Shoreline Trail, so it's out of the way of that development. It tells you something about how old this gravel pit is, that all of these trees have grown up on top of the mine surface. I mean, that's probably a good 30, 40, 50 years. Nice to have a little bit of shade too. Boy, Provo City's built a really nice trailhead here at Slate Canyon. Pavilions, nice parking lots, restrooms. It's made all the nicer because the local citizens have been working really hard to maintain it. In fact, last week, we were able to come here for a major service project held by local citizens. So, roll tape, Spencer. Citizens of Provo are out in force today. Craig, you want to introduce yourself?
I'd be happy to. I'm Craig Christensen. I'm the Executive Director of Conserve Utah Valley. And so we're helping to host today's event.
All the people who helped from Provo City, who were phenomenal, and Conserve Utah Valley, and the bike coalition from Provo. So many people came together today to lend their efforts. It was amazing.
Some people from Rock Canyon Preservation, some people who've been involved in different conservation groups. We came together and we said, look, let's see what we can do to make more people aware of conservation. And over the last several years, Provo has actually been making some significant, the parking lots, the trails. They've done such a nice job. So we're just trying to draw more attention to it. And the best way to bring attention is to let people serve.
What did you think? You have 300-400 people here?
That was an estimate. Although as of last night, there were only 243 registered, so a lot more people just pitched in. If that many people care about protecting Slate Canyon, we're in a much better place than we were last summer.
Let's see. Now, according to my favorite trails app, I hauled this 30 pounds here, about 10.5 miles a day, so I'm beat. But next episode, we will be starting again here in Slate Canyon and heading north through Provo. So we'll see you then.